Yes, welcome back. Let's read some more.
Egyptian hieroglyphs. Egyptian hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs from the tomb of Seti I, KV 17, 13th century BC. Script typographic, usable as Abjad time period. 3200 BC AD 400. Direction right to left, left to right. Language Egyptian language related scripts. Parent systems. Proto-writing, Egyptian hieroglyphs. Child systems. Hieratic, Proto-Semitic. ISO 15924. ISO 15924. Egypt 050. Egyptian hieroglyphs. Unicode Unique Elias. Egyptian hieroglyphs. Unicode Ranju +13000 U +1342 F hieroglyphs. U +13430 U +1343 F controls. Egyptian hieroglyphs. /HLFS //HRLFS /1, 2 were the formal writing system used in ancient Egypt for writing the Egyptian language. Hieroglyphs combined logographic, syllabic and alphabet elements, with more than 100 distinct characters. 3, 4 cursive hieroglyphs were used for religious literature in papyrus and wood. The later hieratic and demotic Egyptian scripts were derived from hieroglyphic writing, as was the Proto-Semitic script that later evolved into the Phoenician alphabet. 5. Through the Phoenician alphabet's major child systems, the Greek and Aramaic scripts, the Egyptian hieroglyphic script is ancestral to the majority of scripts in modern use, most prominently the Latin and Cyrillic scripts, through Greek, and the Arabic script, and possibly the Brahmic family of scripts, through Aramaic, Phoenician, and Greek. The use of hieroglyphic writing arose from proto-literate symbol systems in the early Bronze Age, around 32nd century BC, Nakada 3, 6, with the first decipherable sentence written in the Egyptian language dating to the 2nd dynasty, 28th century BC. Egyptian hieroglyphs developed into a mature writing system used for monumental inscription in the classical language of the Middle Kingdom period. During this period, the system used about 900 distinct signs. The use of this writing system continued through the New Kingdom and late period, and on into the Persian and Ptolemaic periods. Late survivals of hieroglyphicus are found well into the Roman period, extending into the 4th century AD. 7. With the final closing of pagan temples in the 5th century, knowledge of hieroglyphic writing was lost. Although attempts were made, the script remained undeciphered throughout the Middle Ages and the early modern period. The decipherment of hieroglyphic writing was finally accomplished in the 1820s by Jean-François Champollion, with the help of the Rosetta Stone. 8. The number of words contained in all ancient Egyptian, i.e. hieroglyphic and hieratic, texts known today is approximately 5 million, and tends towards 10 million if counting duplicates, such as the Book of the Dead and the Coffin texts, separately. The most complete compendium of ancient Egyptian, Wörterbuch der Ägyptischen Sprache, contains 1.5–1.7 million words. 9, 10. Etymology. The word hieroglyph comes from the Greek adjective, hieroglyphikos, 11, a compound of, hieros sacred, 12, and, glph, lota, carve, engrave, cglyph, 13, meaning sacred carving. The glyphs themselves, since the Ptolemaic period, were called hieroglyphica, grammata, the sacred engraved letters, the Greek counterpart to the Egyptian expression of mdw.wn are God's words. 14. Greek meant a carver of hieroglyphs. 15. In English. Hieroglyph as a noun is recorded from 1590, originally short for nominalized hieroglyphic, 1580s, with a plural hieroglyphics, from adjectival use, hieroglyphic character, 1617. The Nag Hammadi texts written in Sardinic Coptic call the hieroglyphs writings of the magicians soothsayers, Coptic, 18. History and evolution. Origin. Hieroglyphs may have emerged from the pre-literate artistic traditions of Egypt. For example, symbols on Julian pottery from c. 4000 BC have been argued to resemble hieroglyphic writing. 19. Proto-hieroglyphic symbol systems developed in the second half of the 4th millennium BC, such as the clay labels of a pre-dynastic ruler called Scorpion I, Nakada IIIA period, c. 33rd century BC, recovered at Abydos, modern LQAAB, in 1998, or the Nama palette, c. 31st century BC. 6. The first full sentence written in mature hieroglyphs so far discovered was found on a seal. Impression in the tomb of Seth-Peribsen at LQAAB, which dates from the 2nd dynasty, 28th or 27th century BC. Around 800, hieroglyphs are known to date back to the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom and New Kingdom eras. By the Greco-Roman period, there were more than 5,000.3 paintings with symbols on Nakada II pottery, 3500-3200 BCE, designs on some of the labels or tokens from Abydos, carbon-dated Tark, 3400-3200 BC, and among the earliest form of writing in Egypt. 2021. They are similar to contemporary tags from Uruk, Mesopotamia. 22. Jeffrey Sampson stated that Egyptian hieroglyphs came into existence a little after Sumerian script, and, probably, were invented under the influence of the latter. 23. And that it is probable that the general idea of expressing words of a language in writing was brought to Egypt from Sumerian Mesopotamia. 24. 25. There are many instances of early Egypt-Mesopotamia relations, but given the lack of direct evidence for the transfer of writing, no definitive determination has been made as to the origin of hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt. 26. Others have held that the evidence for such direct influence remains flimsy, and that a very credible argument can also be made for the independent development of writing in Egypt. 27. Since the 1990s, the above-mentioned discoveries of GLYPHS at Abydos dated to between 3400 and 3200 BCE, have shed doubt on the classical notion that the Mesopotamian symbol system predates the Egyptian one. However, Egyptian writing appeared suddenly at that time, while Mesopotamia had a long evolutionary history of the usage of signs for agricultural and accounting purposes in tokens dating as early back to c. 8000 BC. 21. Egyptian scholar Gamal Mokhtar argued that the inventory of hieroglyphic symbols derived from fauna and flora used in the signs, which are essentially African, and in regards to writing, we have seen that are purely Nilotic. Hence African origin not only is not excluded, but probably reflects the reality, although he acknowledged the geographical location of Egypt made it a receptacle for many influences. 28. Rosalie David also stated that if Egypt did adopt the idea of writing from elsewhere, it was presumably only the concept which was taken over, since the forms of the hieroglyphs are entirely Egyptian in origin and reflect a distinctive flora, fauna and images of Egypt's own landscape. 29. Labels with early inscriptions from the Tomb of Men's, 3200-3000 BCE. Labels with early inscriptions from the Tomb of Men's, 3200-3000 BCE. Ivory plaque of Men's, 3200-300 BCE. Ivory plaque of Men's, 3200-3000 BCE. Ivory plaque of men's drawing. Ivory plaque of men's drawing. The oldest known full sentence written in mature hieroglyphs. Seal impression of Seth Peribsen, 2nd dynasty, c. 28-27th century BCE. The oldest known full sentence written in mature hieroglyphs. Seal impression of Seth Peribsen, 2nd dynasty, c. 28-27th century BCE. Mature writing system. Hieroglyphs on Stir in Louvre c. 1321 BCE. Hieroglyphs consist of three kinds of glyphs. Phonetic glyphs including single consonant characters that function like an alphabet, logographs, representing morphemes, and determinatives. We can narrow down the meaning of logographic or phonetic words. Late period. As writing developed and became more widespread among the Egyptian people, simplified glyph forms developed, resulting in the hieratic, priestly, and demotic, popular, scripts. These variants were also more suited than hieroglyphs for use on papyrus. Hieroglyphic. Artists' scaled drawing of hieroglyphs meaning life, stability, and dominion. The grid lines allowed artists to draw the hieroglyphs at whatever scale was needed. ca. 1479 1458 b.c. 30, writing was not, however, eclipsed, but existed alongside the other forms, especially in monumental and other formal writing. The Rosetta Stone contains three parallel scripts: hieroglyphic, demotic, and Greek. Late survival. Hieroglyphs continued to be used under Persian rule, intermittent in the 6th and 5th centuries BCE, and after Alexander the Great's conquest of Egypt, during the ensuing Ptolemaic and Roman periods. It appears that the misleading quality of comments from Greek and Roman writers about hieroglyphs came about, at least in part, as a response to the changed political situation. Some believe hieroglyphs may have functioned as a way to distinguish true Egyptians from some of the foreign conquerors. Another reason may be the refusal to tackle a foreign culture on its own terms, which characterized Greco-Roman approaches to Egyptian culture generally. Having learned that hieroglyphs were sacred writing, Greco-Roman authors imagined the complex but rational system as an allegorical, even magical, system transmitting secret, mystic knowledge. 7. By the 4th century CE, few Egyptians were capable of reading hieroglyphs, and the myth of allegorical hieroglyphs was ascendant. 7. Monumental use of hieroglyphs ceased after the closing of all non-Christian temples in 391 by the Roman Emperor Theodosius I. The last known inscription is from Philae, known as Graffito of Esmetaechum, from 394. 31. The Hieroglyphica of Horapollo, c. 5th century, appears to retain some genuine knowledge about the writing system. It offers an explanation of close to 200 signs. Some are identified correctly, such as the goose hieroglyph, Z, representing the word for sun. 7. A half-dozen demotic glyphs are still in use, added to the Greek alphabet when writing Coptic. Decipherment. Ibn Washir's attempt at a translation of a hieroglyphic text. Knowledge of the hieroglyphs had been lost completely in the medieval period. Early attempts at decipherment are due to Yonan al-Misri and Ibn Washir, 9th and 10th century respectively. 32. All medieval and early modern attempts were hampered by the fundamental assumption that hieroglyphs recorded ideas and not sounds of the language. As no bilingual texts were available, any such symbolic translation could be proposed without the possibility of verification. 33. It was not until Athanasius Kircher in the mid-17th century that scholars began to think the hieroglyphs might also represent sounds. Kircher was familiar with Coptic, and thought that it might be the key to deciphering the hieroglyphs, but was held back by a belief in the mystical nature of the symbols. 7. The Rosetta Stone in the British Museum. The breakthrough in decipherment came only with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone by Napoleon's troops in 1799, during Napoleon's Egyptian invasion. As the stone presented a hieroglyphic and a demotic version of the same text in parallel with a Greek translation, plenty of material for falsifiable studies and translation was suddenly available. In the early 19th century, scholars such as Sylvestre de Sacchi, Johann David Akerblad, and Thomas Young studied the inscriptions on the stone, and were able to make some headway. Finally, Jean-François Champollion made the complete decipherment by the 1820s. In his Lettres Dacia, 1822, he wrote, "It is a complex system, writing figurative, symbolic and phonetic all at once, in the same text, the same phrase, I would almost say in the same word. 34. Illustration from Tabula Egyptia Hieroglyphs ex Senata, published in Acta Ereditorum, 1714. Writing system. Visually, hieroglyphs are all more or less figurative. They present real or abstract elements, sometimes stylized and simplified, but all generally perfectly recognizable in form. However, the same sign can, according to context, be interpreted in diverse ways, as a phonogram, phonetic reading, as allegogram, or as an ideogram, semigram, determinative, semantic reading. The determinative was not read as a phonetic constituent, but facilitated understanding by differentiating theword from its homophones. Phonetic reading. Hieroglyphs typical of the Greco-Roman period. Most non-determinative hieroglyphic signs are phonograms whose meaning is determined by pronunciation, independent of visual characteristics. This follows the rebus principle where, for example, the picture of an eye could stand not only for the English word eye, but also for its phonetic equivalent, the first-person pronoun I. Phonograms formed with one consonant are called uniliteral signs, with two consonants, biliteral signs, with three, triliteral signs. 24 uniliteral signs make up the so-called hieroglyphic alphabet. Egyptian hieroglyphic writing does not normally indicate vowels, unlike cuneiform, and for that reason has been labeled by some as an abjad, i.e., an alphabet without vowels. Thus, hieroglyphic writing representing a pintail duck is read in Egyptian as S, derived from the main consonants of the Egyptian word for this duck, S, and T. Note that all, two half rings opening to lift, sometimes replaced by the digit 3, is the Egyptian aleph. It is also possible to use the hieroglyph of the pintail duck without a link to its meaning in order to represent two phonemes S and, independently of any vowels that could accompany these consonants, and in this way write the word S, sun, or when complemented by other signs detailed below, keep, watch, and W, hard ground. For example, G38. The characters S, G38, Z1S. The same character used only in order to signify, according to the context, pintail duck or, with the appropriate determinative, sun, two words having the same or similar consonants. The meaning of the little vertical stroke will be explained further on under logograms Z. G38. A 47. D54. The character S as used in the word SW, keep, watch as in the Arabic script. Not all vowels were written in Egyptian hieroglyphs. It is debatable whether vowels were written at all. Possibly, as with Arabic, the semivowels /W/ and /J/, as in English W and Y, could as the vowels /U/ and /I/. In modern transcriptions, an E is added between consonants to aid in their pronunciation. For example, NF good is typically written nefer. This does not reflect Egyptian vowels which are obscure, but is merely a modern convention. Likewise, The and are commonly transliterated asa, as in ra, ah. Hieroglyphs are inscribed in rows of pictures arranged in horizontal lines or vertical columns. 35. Both hieroglyph lines as well as signs contained in the